Hello everyone, this is a video that's going to go over a lot of common questions we've been getting over the last couple of weeks from especially the new runners just getting into the sport. You just got into it the last couple of years, maybe you've just got into this club and you're trying to work out what this culture is and what we're doing here. So I'm just going to rattle through messages I've been getting, questions I get face to face, or kind of recurring stuff that comes up every week. And hopefully you're watching this and it makes sense and you're actually going to do something about it and live it. So some common keywords that we put in the plans, or sometimes it's just out there on the internet, social media or whatever, and it's like, what does it mean? So there's some words that are used to mean a lot of things. For example, let's start with LT1 and LT2. So sounds a bit sciencey. So when people say LT1, what they mean is the first lactate turn point. If you're to start an easy pace and you get quicker and quicker and quicker, at some point lactate in the blood starts to go up. It's something that we measure to measure effort, basically, instead of pace. Not that anyone really is going to be doing any lactate measuring in a session ever. So when we say run at LT1, we're estimating that from your race performances. So for example, if you run a 5k at 6 minutes a mile, or 3:45 minutes a kilometre, which is about the same, your LT1 might be somewhere in the region of, say, 7 a mile, which is what, 4:25 a kilometre, 4:30 a kilometre, something like that. About a minute a mile difference. But it depends on what training you've done, it depends on what event you're focusing on, it depends on your aerobic base and all that stuff. So that's maybe something that I estimate based off your performances, and I would attach a pace to it. And if you don't know what your LT1 is, you should ask. LT2 is just the next lactate turn point in the curve. So it's about the pace you can run for 1 hour. LT1 is like the pace you can run for maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours, if you had a 2.5 hour race. LT2 is the pace you can run at for a 1 hour race. So for some people that's 10k, some people it's 10 mile, for some people it's even half marathon if they're really elite. And it's significantly more intense than LT1. And once you go over LT2, you're very anaerobic, you're producing exponentially more lactate that your body can't remove. And then we get into the upper zones. But LT2 is just the second lactate turn point, that's all it is. Sometimes it might be called anaerobic threshold. And it's usually about 10-15 seconds a mile slower than your 10k pace, unless you run 10k in 1 hour, and then that will be it. So it's very close to 10k pace, and kind of close to half marathon pace as well, so it's a bit in between. But it's a pace that most people are going to train at because most people are doing 5k to half marathon, so it's probably an intensity that's going to be covered quite a lot in the week. Another thing that we write here is, like, I might write like 90% of X pace, 90% of 10k pace. It's like an Italian method of coaching, so or Canova. So sometimes we quantify intensity by saying a percentage of a pace. Reason why I like that is because it's working from the goal back. So if your goal is to be running at 6 minutes a mile for a half marathon, when we're saying 90% of goal pace, it's like the training feels like it's leading towards somewhere. There's a purpose to it. So the way to work that out, the way simply I work it out, is what is 1%. So for me, 1% of marathon pace is about 3 seconds. So if I'm going to do 90% of marathon pace, I'm going to add on 30 seconds to the pace. So instead of running 5:15, I'm running 5:45 pace. Simple as that, really. Sometimes it might be 110% or whatever. And the way we do our training blocks, I'm trying not to make this too scientific too soon, and I know it's a lot of words for new people getting into it, but when we do our training blocks, we train from the extremes at the start, and then we get more specific as the block goes on. Funnel periodization, if anyone saw the PowerPoint and presentation from a few weeks ago. So we, in the specific phase of the block, the last 8-12 weeks, we do a lot of work between 90% and 110%. In the base, we do a lot of work between 80% and 120%. Yeah, you get the idea. So it gets you thinking more about our blocks and how we approach a race. Well, the word S&C, some people might not know what that even means. It means strength and conditioning. So it's a word we use to call anything basically that isn't running, that involves working against the resistance. So it could be circuits, plyometrics, weight training, drills. You can even put that in that barrier. Anything that complements our running against a resistance or kind of more gym orientated. Okay. When I write something like hilly terrain or rolling, I just mean go and run somewhere hilly. Now, your hilly might be different to my hilly, which will be different to someone else's hilly. It just means run somewhere testing that isn't flat, because we're trying to build our frame up to resist fatigue. For example, top locations in the northeast, if you want to break down to them: Chopwell Woods, Hampstead Forest, Pinchenthorpe, Flats Lane. These are like traily places. What else we got? Castle Eden Dean, very good. I'm trying to think of a wide range where people might go. You know, the Yorkshire Dales and the Lakes, obviously great if you can get out there, but it all involves driving, so you've got to be a little bit more out there with that. You can get these things at home. I live in like pit villages, so there's hills everywhere. I live in Wheatley Hill, so I get a lot of hills. So find hills, okay? Even better if you can do it, if I specify, do it on some soft surface as well, African style, okay? Or altitude camps where the best trim. VO2 max. So you hear that word a lot, don't you? VO2 max means the maximum amount of oxygen you can get in at once, utilize it, and actually use it to produce energy, ATP. So VO2 max pace is normally about the pace you can run at for 10 to 15 minutes all out. So it's very intense. For most people, pretty much everyone really, it's faster than 5k pace. We might do some intervals of that sometimes, but it's a word that gets chucked around a lot. And people are very obsessed by VO2 max, because in the 70s and 80s, it was like this new thing that people measured, and they found that obviously fitter athletes had higher VO2 max than the normal population. And it's kind of on our watches, and like people think VO2 max is when they do a hard session, which is a lot of crap. It actually, how can a watch on the wrist measure VO2 max? It's impossible. You need a mask to measure oxygen and carbon dioxide. You cannot measure your VO2 max from a watch. So ignore all of those devices. It's just estimating that you ran a bit faster for a lower heart rate or whatever. Different watches measure it differently, but ignore that completely. It means nothing at all. Race predictors on your watch, nothing at all. Ignore them. There's 3 pillars of performance that are important: VO2 max, lactate threshold, LT2, which is lactate threshold, and running economy. But running economy is the most important. Running economy is basically at a set intensity of pace, how much oxygen do you use at that pace? If it's less than someone else of the same VO2 max, you're going to be faster. So it's running economy is a much more important factor that we can influence in our training through everything that we do. But all 3 are needed. You can't have a really low VO2 max and be a good 5k runner. So you can change all these variables through doing different types of training. If you saw my PowerPoint presentation from a few weeks ago, you saw all the factors that there is, from anthropometrics, limb length, biomechanical efficiencies, psychological factors, physiological factors, economy, VO2 max, muscle tension, muscle tendon length, and everything else. So there's lots of factors. VO2 max is only one. It's not the most important thing. Sometimes you might hear the word tempo being thrown around, which basically, tempo, it can mean anything. Tempo, I would never write just run tempo, because that doesn't mean anything. It just means really run somewhere between marathon pace and 10k pace. Really, that's the kind of range, isn't it? A high steady run, but tempo, unless specified next to something else, it can mean anything. Zones, so there's a lot of things out there. Zone 2 is very popular, which is called going for a run. You don't need to worry about what zone you're in, and if you accidentally tap into zone 3 when you're out for an easy run, you're not going to lose any benefit. It's really funny that what people put out on that type of stuff. The game has definitely gone in that department. They are bonkers. They are bonkers. Do not worry about if you're falling into one zone or the other. It's it all running's important, and the ones that say avoid zone 3 really don't know what they're talking about either. Yes, you got to polarize your training at different times, but like don't stress. Take the pressure off. Enjoy your running for goodness sake. Um, do not be obsessed if you're not in the exact zone at all times. Same goes with heart rates and all the other stuff. It's quite funny. But brands need to make money out of people, and they're pushing that stuff. All the little add-ons that make running complicated. Right, specific questions. So I've went over some keywords, and I've spent 10 minutes doing that, which is longer than I wanted to. Because there's a lot of stuff to clear up, and you can imagine my job trying to coach people who have been coached through apps or a distant coach who doesn't really get involved. You know, I feel for the new runners getting into it now. I really do. It's it's a sport that's been made really complicated by a lot of people. Yes, there's a lot of science involved, but my job's to make it fun, feel like you can make progress, simplify it down to what you actually need to do, and build a damn team around you, okay? So, but next question, how does a running routine look like? So let's say you're going out for a run, or you're going to do a session, which is like more of a specific thing than just a run. So let's just say a run. So what do you actually go through to do that? What I would say is, you got to eat before you run. I'm not really into fasting before runs. Not my thing. You need to eat, you need to fuel. We need to be hydrated. It's good to do a little bit of mobility in the if it's morning especially. So like some leg swings, some groin gates, some hamstring reaches, some hamstring kicks, stuff like that. You could do some drills. You could do some more of the drills as well. And then if this is just a run, and then you just go out the door and ease into it and go for it. Come back, so you've lost some minerals. You've been sweating, so you've lost some water. So you want to stretch a bit, because if you're going down to do a desk job or you're going for a long drive afterwards, a little bit of stretch and post run is very, very useful. It does not need to be 20 minutes. It just needs to be a few stretches, each muscle group. And then get some fuel in, get some hydration in, and then crack on. Don't worry about it. You don't need to worry about fueling for like easy, steady runs, gels and caffeine and whatever. Just get out, run, enjoy. If you're doing a session, let's say you're not with a group, what I would say is, before you come to the session, even if you come into with me or you're doing it on your own, know what you want to get out of that session. We need to set a broad pace, but don't get obsessed by it. We need a pace zone, a kind of intensity that we want to get out. And what is our goal of the workout? Know that before you start. Do not go to a workout not reading through your session fully, not understanding what you want to get out of it. You need to be drilled in what you want to get out of it. How does this lead to the goal? If you don't know why a certain workout does not lead to your goal, then ask the coach, ask me, or ask questions. Then go through the same thing what you did on the run. So we need to do an easy jog. So we need to do about 10, 15, 20 minutes of easy running first thing. Then we need to do some drills. So we'll start with mobility, like the leg swings, feed the chickens. Then we need to do some A skips, B skips, C skips, straight leg runs, the more dynamic, what we call dynamic stretching. No static stretching, dynamic stretching. And then what we'll do is, depends on the type of session, I might change the next bit, but we need to do some strides. So strides get your body ready for faster running in a faster session. Normally about 10 to 20 seconds, fast and fluid, that's my 2 words, just fast and fluid, about 3 or 4 strides. What I say is, do as many strides until you feel ready to hit the first rep of your workout or the first kilometre, mile of your workout at the desired intensity that you want to hit. So if you feel stiff and lethargic, do some more strides, get loose, and then start your workout. Don't rush into the workout if you don't feel ready. Do our main session. Depends on the session. If it's very long and extensive, yes, we need to fuel. So, for example, tomorrow I got 24 mile around that region. I need to take some carbs on, and I take some water on because it's not good to put your body really in a state of that long hard running without anything. But don't get obsessed by how much you take. For example, I just want to take a bit to get through the workout and help my recovery. So tomorrow I'll probably only take on 120 grams of carbs, probably 150 grams of carbs through gels for a 24 miler at a moderate effort. So it doesn't need to be instant. But I would write what you specifically need to do if it was that type of workout. So we do our workout. Afterwards we do a warm down, so a cool down, same as your warm up, 10-15 minutes. But personally, I don't do long warm downs because I've always got another run to do in the day, and I think they're a little bit sloppy, so I just do 10 minutes. I don't really bother. And then we need some good stretching afterwards. And then if we've done a hard session, we need to get some protein and some carbs in, about 20 grams, 25 grams of protein, about 60 to 80 grams of carbs within the first 30 minutes after finishing the session. And then eat regularly throughout the day, especially protein and carbohydrate. And I mean, just eat normal, you know. My personal training, because I do about 3 sessions a day, plus I'll coach and I kind of do drills with people and stuff. I just eat before and after every activity. So I kind of spread it out, I guess, across maybe 5 or 6 meals a day. And I just eat regularly. I never ever go too long without eating because my engine's always going. And we do some stretches after a hard session, a little bit more extensively than you would just after a normal run. And that's a good setup. Okay, that's all you need to do. And I personally believe in training diaries massively. I've kept training diaries since I was 12. Writing it down, like write it down. Yes, Strava's a good training diary, but you need it for you, not for anyone else, but for you. Write down how you felt. You know, what were the emotions of it? Did you enjoy it? It's your journey, so write it down, document it, because it's good to look back on and work out the patterns of your training when you're trying to get to the next level. Very, very important. I love looking at my training diaries from when I was 15, 16. And you can see the passion in it. It's good. It's good. So there's first question. I've got loads. How much time do you mean? Okay. Number 3 was how to set a goal, which is a hard question to ask. So an athlete asked me that, how do you set a goal? I didn't used to have to help athletes set goals when I first started coaching. And I've never had a problem setting a goal. What I would say is, though, because it's now something that I have to help people with, is you need to know what you want. I've went through this many times in the last few posts and stuff. You have to know what you want out of the sport. Like, clearly communicate that with me and the people around you. You need to know actually how much do you want it, because people say they want something, but how much do you actually want it? Let's say it's a time goal. You want to run half marathon under 9 minutes. So a lot of people might want to do that, but how much do you really want it? Do you want it a little bit? Quite a lot, you know? And then how much are you willing to actually work and sacrifice to achieve that goal? Because these 3 questions really determine, you know, what you actually want to get out of it. And if you can't answer them, maybe you don't need structured coaching. Maybe you need to just take the sport leisurely and kind of just enjoy it and not put the kind of pressure on to perform and develop. Because if you can't tell me where you want to go, how am I supposed to take you to that place? Because it's like imaginary, it doesn't exist. So we need to have a vision of where that is. You think, what's your wildest, biggest ambition since getting into running? Like, you know, that has to be your top point. And then it's like, how do we get to that? You know, that's my job, is to take you on the journey from A to B through how many years that takes. And you've always got to be talking about that, you know. I'm always talking about goals, constantly. It's in my head all the time. I've always been goal oriented like that. Never not had a goal. Maybe for a week after I've just finished one goal, and I might take a couple of weeks to formulate the next thing. But then I'm on it, and I'm directing everything I do towards it. Without goals, we're nothing. There's no point doing hard training. It's, you know, it's goalless. But You need to work out what you're passionate about. What do you have an emotional connection to? You've got to have an emotional connection towards the goal. It can't just be because it'll be decent, it'll look good, it's a popular thing to do. It's not worth it. It's got to come from within. That's something I cannot give you. That's something that you have to give me. Number 4, how to build a network around you. So what I'm talking about here is dream teams. So this hasn't worked too well last couple of years because people do not turn up enough. It's not. The running industry's changed. I mean, when I was growing up, I always had. When I was growing up, or when I go on a training camp now, I have a great group. When I'm here, home, I do not have a great group because there isn't anyone to train with, necessarily here. Now, I'll go on the next bit, but you need people around you who you can do your easy days with, who you can go to the gym with, who you can have a laugh with, who you can do your long run with, who you can talk about your goals with, and just have some crack and actually enjoy the sport. Now, I think NEP does this as good as anyone because at the moment a lot of places are struggling. Social running clubs aside, because they're not going for goals, places that are coaching people one-to-one, proper coaching, and directing people to where they want to go, we do it as good as anyone in terms of setting group sessions up, one-to-one training opportunities, training weekends, holidays away, races together. And I know it's difficult at the moment, all that. We're trying. We're getting new people in, trying to build the next network. Kind of had about 5 of them so far. So we're trying to build the next one. And it'll come. But you have to find other people who want what you want. So you have to find people who can maybe be a mentor towards you. Now, I can act as some of these things, but you need more than just me. You need a few other people around you. You need someone who you can share your training with. You maybe need a physio who can look after you when you break sometimes. You maybe need, someone that, you really trust to when it's maybe just a good friend who can from an emotional support standpoint, that maybe you wouldn't feel comfortable talking to me about, but you want to talk to someone else about. And having lots of training partners for that. So it's about networking. It's about putting yourself out there. And you can't find these people if you don't know what you want. So you need to know what you want out of sport to then attract other people on the same path as you. Because there's thousands of new runners now. There's going to be a lot of people out there. You just have to find them, and you have to go out and you have to meet them, and you have to, And I'm always bringing people into the club, and I'm trying to set these networks up. NEP is built on networks. You've got the Sedgefield group Monday. You've got the Wednesday group. They come on Monday, Wednesday, who then long run together on the weekend. You've got the Tuesday, Thursday groups in Teesside, and then ideally there's a long run off the back of that on a Sunday, but a lot of those people do not come. There's a Saturday morning where I'm trying to get people together. I've done group sessions every Saturday morning before, and we get a few, but in Durham maybe, or then I move it, but I'm trying to set up pockets of networks. A lot of what I do is one-to-one now because people don't group together. But I need to group people together and get networks going, as well as the one-to-one. But you need to help me do that as well. Number 5, how to find places to train. So I've named some good places to train. What I would say is, to answer that question really simply, is to come to every session in NEP for 2 months and you will discover most places south of the River Wear that are good to train. Pinchinthorpe, Gisborough Woods, Goat, God's Gym. If you want pure pace and just lock in, Teesside Industrial Estate. It's the opposite of Pinchinthorpe. Anywhere in the Cleveland Hills is fantastic. Lordstones, Rusty Bike, Ingerby Greenow, the Dudley Arms, Great Ayton, Gribdale. I've named Hampshire Forest, Chopwell Woods. These are for more steady runs getting out there. But for enclosed spaces for sessions, Net Park's really good. We do it every Monday. and we'll do it every Monday for the rest. We've done it for 7 years. How many more? Where else? Billingham, what's it called? The Biz Hub, Billingham Industrial Estate. Basically, it's a bit like NEP Park. You've got the tracks, so you've got Silksworth, Sunderland, you've got Millsborough Sports Village, and you've got Maidencastle at Durham. Maidencastle at Durham's harder to get on a lot of the time because there's football on there, but Millsborough Sports Village, or you've got one at Lawrence Jackson School near Gisborough. It's a little bit cheaper, 4 lanes with a nice stripy one in the middle. So there's like the tracks. And there's lots of good housing state loops. If you follow NEP for 2 months, you'll find a lot of these places. You find good places for hill sessions, tempo runs, interval sessions, and that. But come to stuff, and especially the way stuff, where we find even better places. Portugal, Font-Romeu. So there you go. Number 6, how to deal with fatigue, tiredness, and overtraining. So this no doubt affects everyone, and a lot of people don't want to say it when they come to a group session because they don't want to put a downer on it. But I can tell just looking at you. So what I would say is fatigue is part of the sport. Now, I talked about this in the presentation. Training is stress plus rest equals growth. That's all training is. And we follow the principle of supercompensation. So basically, when you induce a stress, your performance goes down because you're tired. Then when you rest, recover, now that could just be going about your day or overnight sleep or a couple of easy days. You then supercompensate and your fitness goes up because freshness goes up. And then you do the next training stimulus, the hard training stimulus, and then your performance goes down. But it doesn't go down as much because you come from a high level. And then you recover again and you go back up. So training follows like this type of path. It's not linear, it's not a straight line. Because stress plus rest equals growth. And you could be talking about a microcycle or a macrocycle of that stress, So anyone who's done a full marathon block understands you go to a place where you're quite fatigued for quite a long time. I'm probably in that stage right now, about 8 weeks to go. You feel you're putting overload more than you have done a few weeks ago. Your body hasn't had time to adapt to that overload, and you probably haven't rested enough yet, or just got used to the training. So you're quite fatigued, but you're really fit. But you don't think you're fit because you're not fresh. As I said, fatigue is a mask of fitness. It masks. Okay, it masks fitness. And then when you take that fatigue away, you easy run, you chill out, you rest, your freshness goes straight up and you realise how fit you are because you race. This is why we taper. We have hard training blocks, maybe down weeks sometimes. Then when we taper, so we have 2 weeks, 1 week before you go race, or 3 weeks if it's longer, then you get fresh and you feel amazing, and then you go and produce this amazing performance that you've never done before. But you have to do the work, the hard work, to then earn the taper, to then peak. Because if you don't do the hard work, your level's only here. If you do the hard work, you could have a potential level of hit. But fatigue is part of it. So don't worry about fatigue. Now, a lot of people get worried about overtraining. It's incredibly hard to overtrain. But overtraining comes from intensity. 9.9 times out of 10. Like, injury, illness, just burnt out comes from intensity. Too much, not taking it easy days easy enough. Killing your sessions, going to the well, and just kind of overall just not recovering very good. Now, how you attack your hard sessions is very important. A lot of people think they've got to absolutely smash the session and be on the pace, and oh my god, if I'm not on it, what's happened? Like, that's not the right philosophy at all. It's about doing what the work is required. Leave a little bit back in your hard sessions. You never ever empty the gas tank in a hard session. Because if you empty the gas tank in a hard session, where do you go next time? The next day you've got a training session. Or maybe the same day you've got something to do. If you empty the tank there, where are you going to go next to? It's about stacking 7 out of 10 days. Once you do a 10 out of 10 day, the next one's 2. Then it's 2. And then it's 1. And then you're ill. So 7 out of 10s. 7 out of 10s. Consistency over a long period of time. You go to the well, empty the tank on race day. Never in training. It never ends well. You can do it now and then, but not very long and not consecutively. Race day is the best training session. Not just another training session. Race day is another level. You're fresh, mentally ready. You're ready to go. You've got competition, you've got emotion, you've got crowd. So racing's the best session. Training is to get to the race. Fatigue is part of it, but control the intensity of what you do, because intensity significantly increases the load on your structure, on your frame. We're not cyclists. We have to hit the ground. So our limiting factor is our frame. How much load can our frame tolerate? And that takes time. That responds differently to your aerobic system. Aerobic system can go all day long. Our frame, it needs to be looked after, and it needs to be built up through good strength conditioning and the type of terrain that we train on to then be able to do more work. Number 7, how to avoid injury. Basically, I've just talked about that, haven't I? Control the intensity. We need a good strength and conditioning plan, regular strength and conditioning plan, paddy circuits, hardcore, your complementary S&C session, stretching regularly, but not over extensively. Regular core on top of these sessions. Bring in plyometrics when it's necessary. Drills every day, or as much as you can. Drills are a very important part. Drills are like plyometrics. Drills make your running economy better. Drills help you move more fluidly. Drills are very, very important and underutilized in a lot of ways in Northeast coaching. That's what I think to say on that. But sleep, nutrition, of course, everything. But strength and conditioning, mix of terrain, control the intensity. That covers a lot. Number 8, how to stay motivated. So, no doubt everyone goes through waves of motivation. I think when you don't have a goal, it's incredibly hard to be motivated. I think if you train on your own a lot, it's incredibly hard to be motivated. If you're not consistent, it's very hard to be motivated, because it's like, well, you missed yesterday, so why didn't you do it today? I may as well miss today as well. So when you're not consistent, your mental muscle's quite weak. Like, you don't have much discipline. If you miss one thing, it then becomes an option. I have a saying at the moment, you can't negotiate with 35k. So in a marathon, it gets tough around 35k, okay? Maybe 30k. There's no negotiation at 35k. It's you against that marathon, that road. And the only way to get your goal is through suffering and saying no to what your body wants to do, i.e. slow down or stop. So I don't negotiate with weakness throughout the week. If I feel like I don't want to do something, I just do it. I just start it, even if I don't want to do it, and then do it like you love it. You can't negotiate with weakness. You can't negotiate with getting out of stuff. There is no negotiation in that. But again, that's tied back to my goal. If I didn't have the goal, I wouldn't bother. So it really comes back to goals on that, which then affects motivation. I think that's the root cause for a lot of people. A goal that is not powerful enough. Got to find your why. 2 more questions. Number 9, what shoes to wear in training? So what is the rotation? We call it shoe rotation. So we have easy day shoes. That's just a normal shoe, normally less expensive, although they are a lot more expensive now. That hopefully lasts you a couple of months. I don't know, it depends on your miles, but they're not made to last either now. You have an easy day shoe. You have a race day shoe, and you have what I call a session shoe. Now, yes, it's okay to use carbons in training sometimes. But what I like to do, and I went cold turkey, and so did a lot of people in the club for a long period of time. Results were fantastic. Because when you train in non-carbon, in your racing carbon, you get this jump. Now, it's not just physical jump, it's a psychological jump. You can't be any worse in training, can you? If you've put on the shoes 3-4% gains in running economy. So there's a psychological boost. However, what we found is we couldn't quite do as much work as we wanted to do in non-carbon. And sometimes, if you hadn't used carbon in training for a while, there was an injury risk to doing that, and your body wasn't quite ready to the mechanics of the carbon shoe. So what we say now is, let's say you have 3 hard sessions a week. Let's do carbon for 1, non-carbon for 2. Some situations you could do carbon for 2, non-carbon for 1, but I probably prefer a little bit more non-carbon. And maybe use the carbon shoe for the one that's closer to your goal paces. Maybe is a suggestion, but it depends on the race, right? But have a mix. So 3 pairs of trainers you need in your rotation, I would say. Because you can't do everything in the same shoe. I wouldn't say. You've got to mix it. Obviously, you need a race shoe as well, and a race shoe that is good for your performance, but also good for your body. Because there's no point racing a shoe that is fast, but it beats you up and you can't run for a week afterwards. So there needs to be a bit of trial and error there to make sure you've got the right one. Last question before I'll leave it there. Number 10 was, what happens if you, what did I even say? Oh, if you're not on pace. So I hate those words. What happens if you aren't on pace in a session? Race is different. Forget about the race. That's something else. Running, and your body does not understand what the GPS is saying. It only understands stress. It doesn't understand 6 minutes a mile, 7 minute mile, 8 minute mile. It just understands stress. Okay, think of it like that. Take maths out of it. Just understand stress. And there's lots of factors that affect that stress in the body. It's not just running, it's what you've done that week, life. Now, if you're beaten up, you're not going to be as fast, are you? Obviously. It depends what period of training you're in. It depends what day you're on. You've just done a hard session yesterday. You're not going to be running a fast pace, are you? Because you're tired. I do not obsess about pace at all. But I know where people are coming from because I've been through it when I was younger. But I've had very successful results by not even having pace on the watch for months. I've done races without a watch and PB'd. Your body only understands effort and stress, and you've got to understand without the watch, what each effort feels like. You've got to understand what easy feels like. You've got to understand what 10k, 5k pace, LT2 feels like without a watch. If you don't know what that feels like without a watch, you're going to get injured, and you just don't understand what your body's telling you. You've got to understand what your body's telling you, and it comes through experience, of course. But you've got to be really in tune with that, and you've got to listen to your body, because your body, believe it or not, we're not machines. Your body tells you everything you need to know. It tells you if you're tired. It tells you if you need to just back off a bit. It tells you when you're feeling good. It tells you when you want to push on. Listen to your body, and your training will be so much better. Less stress. You do not need to place the stress on yourself to hit pace. Nobody has ever said, if you hit X pace in a workout, you can do X on race day. It's about, can you apply this type of intensity, this type of stress on your body for this hour, then this is going to help us on race day. It's not, let's hit this X pace, and if we're a second off, 5 seconds off, whatever, we're not going to get what we want on race day. That's rubbish, because not one session leads to race day. It's everything in your week. Let's say you do 20 different sessions a week of easy runs, yoga, S&C, long run, intervals. It's everything together. It's not just that one session. So do not get dialed into one session. Do not look at every part of it, overanalyze it, because it's no good. It's no good. It's not healthy. It's really not healthy. And it doesn't make you any better on race day. It only makes you mentally more fatigued. It takes that away from you. On race day, you should not be looking at your watch like that. Maybe if you've got a 50k marathon, something longer maybe, where you've got to kind of pace yourself early on, so you have to calm it down. That's understandable. But when it comes to the hard bit, chuck the watch off. There was a story of Sarah Hall doing Valencia last year maybe, or the year after, year before. She got 20 miles, and she was slipping off on a watch, the pace. And what she did is she took her watch off and she chucked it in the crowd because that watch was not telling her what she needed to do anymore. What she needed to do was just to run straight forward and put her effort in and focus on what she wanted to achieve, because the watch wasn't going to make her go any faster. It only negatively affected her. She went on to break the Masters American record for the marathon. This ran around 2:21, but I maybe got the time off a bit. But just one thing on the top of my head. Kelvin Kiptum, who's sadly not with us anymore, when he won London in 2023, he chucked his watch off at halfway after an hour, and then he dropped the group and went on to win the race. And he split the second half of London, the fastest time anyone's ever done that. And I think he ran around 2:02, or was it 2:01 at that London? Might have been 2:02. So, and there's so many stories of people training without a watch. People used to train without a watch before GPS. And you could argue the 60s, 70s, 80s had way more depth of talent and work ethic and performance than what you have in Britain right now. And they had less signs, less data giving them feedback, but they had great training groups, great camaraderie, great work ethic, lots of races to get experience, and they enjoyed the sport and they achieved great results out of it. So we do not need to reinvent the wheel and add more pressure on ourselves. I could go on about that all day long. And there'll be people in the club and there'll be people out there that disagree with that. They'll disagree with a lot of things that I've said on this thing. Everyone has their own opinion on things. I'm giving you my opinion based on my experiences so far as a runner for 16 years, coaching for 7 years, very full-on coaching for 7 years. I don't know how many people I've coached, but it's probably over 500, and closely. The training camps I've been on, and my education in sports science and everything, and I'm telling you what I've seen through a very thorough time in the sport, like a very full-on 80, 100-hour week type thing. And it's I just hope we can help these new runners, and maybe the runners who have been in the sport a long time and lost the way, because it's such a bad industry the way it's turned into. There's a lot of people in it for the wrong reasons, coaches, brands, scientists, whatever. But we're gonna have the best impact we can have in what we do, and I hope as well we can get some young coaches coming through who want to give back and develop, because we need more coaches. We need more coaches not writing sessions on apps and not doing any in-person stuff or whatever, because we need that one-to-one time. And the Northeast is a very fast changing landscape that's losing its quality, so we need to get that back. But I hope that helps clarify some things. And you ask me anything anytime. There's no stupid question ever, because I was once a beginner getting into it, and the only way I learned was by asking people. And when I was getting into it, there was no one doing what NEP does. They just weren't. There wasn't anything like this. There wasn't any coaches out there. There was coaches at running clubs that you saw once a week, twice a week. I would never really message them or anything, or they wouldn't do, social media posts really about training theory and stuff. And so just ask. I'm willing to help anyone. Okay, all right, guys. I'll catch you soon.